Alright chaps, we are back for another episode of the Championship Transfer Rumour Roundup, and we've got a fair bit to go through in today's video. Bit of managerial talk and some transfer rumours which are starting to pop up a little bit more frequently ahead of January. As always, if you do go to enjoy, make sure to drop a like. Any other rumours that we've missed off today, get them in the comments down below and we'll mention them next time. But without any further ado, let's jump in. So where else to start out but with the Kieran McKenna news, and Ipswich fans, I'd love to get your verdict on this one in the comments down below. As of recording, he is being backed as the favourite to take over as the next Celtic manager. Now obviously this is a story which is going to continue to develop quite rapidly. New manager's going to be backed for the Celtic job all the time, but as of recording it is McKenna being tipped as the favourite. Now interestingly enough, McKenna did speak to the press yesterday and basically came out and said that as of right now, he's not held any formal talks with Celtic and he's more than content with the job he's doing at Ipswich at this point in time, but also didn't completely rule himself out of the running for that Celtic job, which does sort of leave it open-ended. Now with Kieran McKenna at Ipswich, it's certainly not the first time that he's been linked with a move away from Portman Road. If you remember back when Ipswich had just been promoted to the Premier League, there were plenty of other Premier League sides who were sniffing around him. You had Man United, Brighton, a few others who were all interested in him at one point. Now from that point onwards, it's probably safe to say that McKenna's stock has dropped since then. Obviously with the relegation from the Premier League and with Ipswich currently sat 12th in the Championship and currently 12 points adrift of Coventry, who are leading the way in the league. But with that being said, still a very highly rated manager, and that's why he's one of Celtic's top candidates at this point in time. I know a lot of people like to sort of rubbish the Scottish League and everything like that, but the lure of a club the size of Celtic is still absolutely huge. Obviously that comes with European football as well. With the way that Ipswich have started this season, haven't exactly been firing on all cylinders like a few people thought they might be. It's an interesting one. I do think it would be a job that McKenna would be seriously considering if a formal offer was made to him. But we'll have to wait and see how this story develops over these next few days. Celtic fans will be interested to hear your thoughts on this one, and Ipswich fans in the comments down below as well. If McKenna does move on, who would you be looking at to replace him? We've also had an interesting development in the Patrick Bamford rumours that have been going around all summer long. Obviously still without a club after being let go by Leeds United over the summer. A few weeks ago it seemed almost nailed on that he'd be moving to Spain, with Getafe really interested in him, but for whatever reason that move didn't materialise in the end, and he's now training with Coventry. Now usually when a player is training with a club at this stage of the season, it's with a view to potentially being offered a contract, but going off Lampard's comments, it doesn't seem like anything is that far advanced with Bamford. In the press the other day, Lampard said, "I guess you could call it doing him a favour. I know Patrick well and he hasn't got a club. He's training with us. I'm very happy. He's a good lad. He's very easy. I know the conclusions everyone's going to get to, but he's just training with us." So Lampard's basically worded it in a way that they're basically just doing Bamford a favour because he knows the player. Listen, that could still turn into a contract if Bamford's absolutely tearing things up in training for Coventry. They could be tempted to offer him one, but he is still on the market, which is fairly surprising to me. Like, we're at the end of October now, going into November, and Bamford still doesn't have a club. I know he didn't play a great deal of football for Leeds in the Championship last season, but just with his track record, I'm fairly surprised that no Championship clubs have thrown a contract his way, or if they have, Bamford's obviously not taken them up on that so far this season. So currently training with Coventry. Let's wait and see if that comes to anything. And as a surprise to absolutely nobody, Leeds United are once again being linked with a move for Norwich City forward Josh Sargent. They were heavily linked with a move for the United States international over the summer. Obviously in the end a move didn't materialise, but they could be tempted to go back in with an offer in the January window. Now Leeds, I think, have made a really good fist of their start to the Premier League campaign and trying to establish themselves as a Premier League club once again. But the one area they're absolutely crying out for more support is up front, in my opinion. I don't think that either Patrick Bamford or Lucas Nemecha, in the sort of limited game time that he's had so far, have particularly set the world alight. Defensively, I think on the whole, Leeds have looked fairly well structured so far, but going forward and in the final third, it's definitely an area the club's going to look to address in the January transfer window. As a result, Sargent is reportedly on their agenda once again, and I've got to say, I think he'd be up for the move. I think, going off evidence in recent weeks, For me, Sargent has cut a bit of a frustrated figure. It's been an awful start to the season for Norwich. Sargent, to be fair to him, has still managed to score 5 in 12, but he's not scored in any of his last 8 games. The stuff he's saying in the press at the moment, he seems really frustrated with the whole situation, and why wouldn't he be? I've got to be honest, it was quite a big surprise anyway that Sargent still remained a Norwich City player past the summer transfer window with all the interest there was. You know, obviously he turned down the move to the Bundesliga, didn't he? I think, though, if a reasonable offer comes in for him in January, I think he'll probably be asking to leave, especially if Norwich don't have a big turnaround between now and January. Another Championship striker who is reportedly on the agenda for Leeds in the January window as well is Haji Wright, another option that they were considering over the summer. In the end, they didn't go for the 27-year-old, but made a really good start to this season. He's got 8 goals in 11 matches so far. Coventry are obviously flying at the top of the Championship at the moment, and I do think it would take quite a bit to get any of the big players out of Coventry right now, especially if, you know, they're going into January still in one of the automatic positions. I think that club is going to make a massive fist of really pushing the boat out for Premier League football and promotion from the second half of the season onwards. To be fair though, I think that Coventry have shown this season that even without Wright on the pitch, they're still more than capable of creating chances and scoring goals, but it would take big money, I think, to get him out of there in January. And last one on Leeds United for the time being, but there have also been a few murmurings once again in recent weeks that Leeds could revisit their interest in Sheffield United midfielder Gustavo Hamer in the January transfer window. Obviously, been a less than ideal start for the Blades so far this season, and Hamer, who's really not played anywhere near his best so far, he's currently out injured, but potentially that's another option that Leeds could look to revisit in January. Before we get anything concrete on that though, I think we really need to understand where Sheffield United sit in this overall pile. You know, where will they become the January window in the Championship? Honestly, could be absolutely anywhere. And speaking of Sheffield United, one player that they're keeping tabs on ahead of the January window is Hamza Chowdhury. He obviously spent the second half of last season on loan with the Blades, did really well for them. I thought quite a versatile player, obviously. He's comfortable playing at right back or in midfield. He's been in and out of that Leicester side so far this season, made 6 starts in the Championship and 3 appearances off the bench. Only got 18 months left on his contract. By the sounds of things, Sheffield United would be keen on potentially a permanent move in the January transfer window. So like I say, no formal offers or anything like that at this stage, but Sheffield United certainly have an interest going off recent reports. Portsmouth are said to be keeping tabs on Walsall wing-back Connor Barrett. He's been doing well in League 2 this season, has 5 goal contributions in 14 appearances with 3 goals and 2 assists. Walsall do play a slightly different system to Pompey usually. They obviously play with wing-backs, whereas Pompey usually go with a more traditional back 4 and wide midfielders. So if Pompey were to go after a player like this, it'll be interesting to see where Mousinho sees him playing long-term, whether that's as a full-back or a bit further up the pitch as a right-sided midfielder. In League 2 this season, his underlying stats have looked quite promising. He is still under contract until 2027, but could be an option that Pompey explore in January. A few weeks ago, Bobby Clark was linked with a £6 million move to Celtic. Now, obviously, he's currently on loan with Derby County from RB Salzburg. By all accounts, they do have the option to recall him in January and then would sell him to Celtic on a permanent basis. Now, whether or not Brendan Rodgers leaving Celtic would have any sort of knock-on effect for this deal not happening anymore, we'll have to wait and see. Derby boss John Eustace has been fairly tight-lipped on it all. He was asked by a reporter on it the other week and basically said that he's not heard anything about it, but Eustace usually is quite coy in the press like that. For Derby so far this season, he's been in and out of that squad, hasn't he? He's made 6 starts and 5 appearances off the bench. Derby fans, what have you made of him so far? Do you think he'd be a massive loss if he was to leave in January? Let me know down below. Both Ipswich and Leicester City have been linked with a move for former Leeds United midfielder Glenn Kamara. He's currently on the books at Rennes in France, but isn't really fancied there. So far this season, he's only played 19 minutes of league football. He spent the second half of last season out on loan in Saudi Arabia, so by all accounts, the French club would be happy to let him leave in January. I do think, to be fair, during his one season at Leeds United, he looked like quite a tidy operator in the Championship. Obviously, someone who did well with Rangers previously in Scotland as well. Let's see if that rumour comes to anything come the January window. But guys, there you have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to drop a like. Any other rumours that we missed off today, make sure to let me know about them in the comments down below. But apart from that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.